wait a few minutes and see if the live thing is working. All right, I guess we're live. Oh, fun stuff. This is going to be good. I like doing these. Just get set up here. Give people a couple minutes to sign in and start watching. If anybody's watching right now and you want to let me know the sound is working and everything is going good, it looks okay, please, that'd be great. Mike is watching. Hey, Mike. Thanks for watching again. Thanks. Okay, cool. Well, just about 5 o'clock, and we're just about to start the weekly BrYangle report. For those of you who don't know why I call it that, my name is Brian, and I work here at Henry's, and the exposure triangle and all the things that we talk about photography-wise, it kind of all wraps up into that whole BrYangle concept. I do photo workshops as well, teaching one-on-one workshops, so it all kind of fits. For those of you who don't know, I work here at Henry's Camera in Newmarket. That's where I'm holding this right now, just a little nook in the store. If the video freezes or if it locks up or if I just stop talking and I disappear for some reason, it's most likely because my behind-the-scenes software is crashed. So just hang tight. I'll be back. I just have to reboot it and come back into this. Anything else? No, I think that's about it. This is a live chat, so you can ask questions during the show. You can chime in and give your opinion. You can let me know you're watching, as Doug and Mike and Pauline, my mother-in-law, hi, and Juan have all done. Thank you so much for doing that. If you have any questions about our main meat and potatoes, so to speak, there will be a dedicated period of time for that conversation in a few minutes. But before we do that, I've got a couple things I want to get into. First off is our Did-You-Know, our weekly digital know-how, our quick tip. The thing that we're going to, just a quick little conversation about something you may or may not have thought about. And today we're going to talk about basic camera maintenance. This was actually suggested by one of our customers here. And a lot of people don't fully know how to take care of their gear. So I'm going to go quickly into it because this is a topic that I can go into for a very long time. I think the biggest thing to think about is what camera are we using? If it's an SLR camera, something a little bit larger, you're going to want to make sure that you clean certain areas and just don't worry about the rest until you have to. If you have dirt or dust or something on your camera, having a lens pen, one of these guys that has a little brush on the backside, super handy little accessory. You can just push the brush out and clean off all the lint and dust. But it also has a carbon-coated tip on the pad when you unscrew the cap, where you can clean your lens, the back of your lens. Some of them are a little bit smaller where you can clean inside your viewfinder, or you can clean the small lens. And if you have a point-and-shoot camera, the little lenses that they have on those as well, you can clean with these little lens pen kits. They're super handy. I say a kit because you can buy them with a blower or a little cloth. Something like this is great to have in your kit at all times because you always have to keep your lens clean or something clean. I was at Niagara Falls doing a workshop, and before I could wipe down one person's camera, I would get to the end. Before I can finish the last one, I'd have to go back and wipe them all down again because everybody's cameras were getting wet. So I always used my lens pen cloth for that. It's a microfiber, very absorbent, works really well. So there's lots of other things you can use. Now, as far as materials cleaning your lens, you're going to want to use something with a nice, proper lens cleaning system. Something like this Zeiss kit is fantastic. It's proper alcohol, which isn't going to be abrasive or scratch anything, not like Windex. Don't use Windex, it's not good. So things like this are where you'd want to go for an actual liquid. And of course, if you have to get a little bit more nitty-gritty with your system, you're going to want to have to clean your sensor every once in a while. Now, here my impression about, or my opinion about cleaning your sensor is if it ain't broke, don't fix it, by Jesus. You don't need to get into that. So if you notice that you have spots in the same place on every photo, that's dust on your sensor, not on your lens. You're not going to see it if it's on your lens. The only way you'll see an obstruction or a problem in your image from your lens is if the whole thing is coated and your focus is soft, or you have a chip in your lens and you get sun flares in weird places. But if you're noticing a dark spot in the same place on every photo, That's because you have dust on the sensor. It's preventing light from hitting that pixel, and that's why you see the noise. So for that, there's a couple ways you can go. You can get these sensor cleaning kits, the little swabs. A lot of people use these. They come in a full frame, which is a 1.0, or a crop sensor, a 1.6 size. There's all these different cleaning accessories where it comes with the alcohol, it comes with the pad itself. These are great for cleaning your sensor if you're confident doing it. My personal suggestion is actually, again, back to the lens pen kit. They have a sensor clear kit. It comes with a blower. It comes with a loop. I always call them Senor Lupe, I don't know why, which is a lighted LED magnifying thingamajigger, where you put that over the opening of your camera, you can see all the dust on your sensor, and then it has a little angled pen where you literally clean the sensor without alcohol, without any of those things that can cause streaking and so on. So the lens pen sensor clear kit is what I usually recommend for cleaning the sensor if you have to. I bought one of those kits to clean 50 or more sensors since I've had it. It's just a great option for about $90, $100. For point and shoot cameras, the biggest thing I can recommend is keep that little lens clean. If it's not, the little shutters that open and close over front of it will get jammed. The oils from your fingerprint is all it takes for that little lens to not, or that little shutter to not go over your lens again and get jammed. So that's what we see most often than not, is the little sense, or the lens itself gets so dirty and people don't realize because you're holding the camera like this, and next thing you know, those little shutters don't open and close. So again, the lens pen kit, where you have the little lens pen, great for cleaning those little point and shoot lenses. And of course the brush is good for cleaning around the lens itself if dust gets in around there. Also, don't squish it or throw it to a friend or do things like that with your camera, because if they break, that's a good way that'll happen. So don't do that. Waterproof cameras. If you have a waterproof camera, waterproof doesn't mean indestructible. It just means you have to maintain it a little differently. So if you use your waterproof camera in salt water, first thing you do when you get out of that salt water is you rinse it off in fresh. When it's dry, you open up all the little doors and you brush off those rubber seals so that you don't get salt crystals forming and gaps in that seal where water can get in. So that's another thing. Other than that, batteries. Keep your batteries stored outside of your camera. Don't leave them in the camera for a couple reasons. AA batteries will leak and corrode the inside of your camera and make it useless. Lithium rechargeable batteries will get so dead that they over-die. Sometimes they swell, and if you put them on a counter and you turn them and they spin like a top, that's usually because the capacitors inside are blown and you can't use that battery anymore, or it'll get stuck in your camera. So always take your batteries out of your camera when you're not using it for a long period of time, and that'll help you with any of those issues. If you have any questions about the Did You Know, go ahead and post them in there. Just going to read back and see. Sound is fine. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Hey, Auntie Lee. Hey, Jerry. My mom is watching. My whole family is watching almost today. This is pretty fun. All right. Now let's get into the new and used. We've talked about the Did You Know. Let's get into the new and used part of our conversation. In this section, I talk about some new stuff that's in the industry, and there's some big kind of cool stuff that's to talk about today, and then something that's used in the industry. And today we are talking about a used item, which we'll get to in just a minute. But first, Pentax has announced officially they're coming back with a film camera. Now, as soon as I saw this, I was excited. Pentax K1000 is a beefcake of a camera that lasted forever, so I was hoping it would be something like that. But what I understand, it's pretty much going to be like this little basic point and shoot type of camera. But what's unique about it is it's the first Pentax camera that actually shoots half frame format. So what that means is you have a 35 millimeter film negative, but the camera shoots vertical, not horizontal. So now you have two vertical images in the same space that it takes up one 35 millimeter image. So basically you're able to double the number of images that you have on a roll of film. So if you have a 24 exposure, it becomes 48 exposure, and so on. So it gives you a lot more flexibility, and they did that specifically because it's more cost effective. A lot of people getting into photography these days are realizing how expensive those films are. Like I talked about when I did my film conversation, you know, the cost of film is not cheap, especially with developing and all that included. So to eke out more images off of a single roll, it's a huge asset. So this is a really neat camera. It's built to shoot vertical, The viewfinder is situated to be vertical. It's film. It's all going to be going back to that old mechanical feel where you have the power winder and you have to wind the film back and release it and pull the pin. So it's going to be a really neat idea. It's not in stores yet, but it is going to hopefully be around this summer. And if it does come out, I really expect people to be ordering a ton of those things. I don't expect they're going to be very expensive. They're really coming out for the general user, not for a high-end photographer at this point. But it's basically a stepping point. If they see that this catches hold and people buy this film camera, they will come out with better cameras down the road, again, for film users. All right. Any questions about that? I will see them. And keep in mind, when we get to the meat and potatoes of the conversation, that's where I really kind of hope people give us, take advantage of the live benefit of this show and use the Q&A part of it. And all you have to do is make a comment in the chat and I'll see that right away. All right. The used part of our conversation is this. This is a Godox. Now it says SK400. It's actually a 300 in the box, but it's a 300 watt studio strobe that it's a plug-in power, but for 300 watt strobe, it's now selling for $129, $130. It's an awesome option for people that want to get into a studio kit. It uses the standard S mount soft boxes and connectors. That's the same as a Bowen's mount. So it's that 3 little prongs. You can press a button, remove the reflector, put a new one on very quickly. So it becomes a really great studio lighting option for people getting into a starting point studio. We just got this in on, what day is today? Today is Wednesday, on Tuesday, yesterday, in our shipment. And I thought that would be a great thing to talk about today in the used part of our conversation. All right, let's go to the chat, make sure that I'm not forgetting anybody or missing anything. Looks like I'm not. Good. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes of our conversation. The meat and potatoes, so to speak. I don't know why I keep doing that. I'm weird. But okay, so today the conversation is, what is a mirrorless camera? And for that, I'm actually going to ask Juan to help me out for a quick second. Can you grab me a mirrorless camera and an SLR camera, please? Something I forgot before I started the show. I have everything else. All right. So everybody is asking these days, what is this? What is that? What's mirrorless? It's so different. I don't know if I want to get into a camera because it's mirrorless and it's different. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Well, the fact is, mirrorless is not different other than technology. Photography hasn't changed much in about 170 years. You have aperture, you have shutter speed, you have ISO, white balance, the basic things that make up images and composition and telling stories and having good lenses and all that kind of stuff. The body itself, though, is starting to change. And the main driving reason for that is the video functionality. So when we had film cameras, the AE1 here, this is a 50-year-old anniversary last year, classic example of a workhorse film camera. Things like this would last 50 years. There's so many AE1s still out there. I see Tom Smith just says hi. I guarantee you he probably has one. These are cameras that people have been using forever. The way they work is the same as a digital SLR works, where you have a lens, single lens reflex, SLR. One lens, light will bounce off a mirror inside the camera. I don't know if this is focusing. I can't really see from my angle. But light will bounce off the mirror and go into the roof prism. These cameras actually focus in the roof prism. It's actually called a focusing screen up inside there. So when I would hold the shutter down halfway, light bounces off the mirror, goes up into the roof prism. The little contrast detecting sensors up there go, ooh, I see something, and it locks, and you take your picture. That's how these cameras focus. That's how these cameras focused, except they weren't digital. Hasn't changed much over the years. Well, then all of a sudden everybody wanted to put video in these cameras. And when you do video, now everything changes, because that mirror that's inside there has to flip up. And now the sensor is being exposed to light. Don't try this at home, boys and girls, I'm a professional. So when that mirror goes back down, the focusing system, everything works perfectly, but when the mirror goes back up, it's now covering the focusing screen, and cameras had to scramble to find new technology. Eventually, they came out with different focusing systems that now focus on the sensor instead of in the roof prism. And when they did that, year after year, they got a little quicker, they got a little more efficient. Eventually, They didn't need the mirror, and they didn't need the roof prism anymore. And that, my friends, is a mirrorless. So mirrorless camera, now the sensor is right there for you to see. Now there does have to be a little bit more care taken. Don't take your lens off when the camera is turned on, because that is definitely going to attract sensor dust onto that surface. And of course, you don't want to be sticking your finger in or poking at it with anything, because that's the most expensive part of your camera for the most part. Well, what has changed is the computer power. And that's where things get really interesting. Mirrorless cameras are incredibly fast in focus. Lost the video and audio. I think that's on Mom's end. Mom, I think you lost it on your end. If anybody else is having trouble with the audio and video, please let me know. I still see it playing over here, so I think the system's still working, but happy Passover to you, Mom, for sure. Oh, and happy early Mother's Day, too. I'll probably do something when I talk next week about that. We'll have to tune in and find out, Mother. Anyway, back to the mirrorless cameras. When the focusing became so much more efficient, and they didn't need the mirror and all that, they made the cameras faster. They have now eye detection autofocus, where they'll detect a human eye or a pet's eye or an animal eye or even a person inside of a car or even the car itself. There's a lot of different modes depending on which camera you choose that'll let you do all of those choices. Oh, Daniel and Tom, thank you so much. You can still hear. Fantastic. All right, so by redesigning the focusing system, they've added tons of features. Focusing features are the main benefits, but video functionality is huge now. These things can shoot all different formats of video. They're going up to 4K or well beyond that in some higher end cameras. They give you really fast, accurate focusing, so you can get smooth, quiet, no noise focusing. I mean, you're walking around with a little studio these days, really. Photography, they still do all the same tricks for photography, but now the video functionality, anything that's computer assisted, is becoming better and faster. Things like high ISO images. Everybody says low light photography. No, I'm not going to say low light. I'm going to say high ISO photography. Low light photography could be taking pictures at night of a landscape and you just keep your shutter open for an hour. At low ISO, you're not going to see noise, well, maybe a little bit from that really long exposure, but not from the ISO noise. When you start raising the ISO for sports and action, the things that I shoot, pro wrestling, hockey, football, concerts, weddings, anything you're going to be taking pictures where you want to freeze action and there's not a lot of light. The ISO control on these cameras is incredible. You're able to shoot it very high. Like this is a 10,000 ISO photo right here beside me. You can come in anytime and have a close look at it. It's clear as day. You can't really see the noise unless you really strain to look for it. So the technology we have at our fingertips to clean up noise is phenomenal. And that's, again, pushed by this move to a mirrorless camera with newer computers and newer technology. Some cameras, like the Nikon, have a new redesigned lens mount, which is much larger, and the sensor is much closer to the back of the lens. Nikon took this as an opportunity to redesign everything head to toe when they made the mirrorless cameras. Everybody has to have new lenses now, but Nikon's lenses have a larger lens flange, the sensor is closer to the back of the lens, it's a more direct path of light, you're not getting the vignetting, you're not having the issue of having to shoot 2 stops over max for your aperture, meaning instead of shooting wide open with an open 1.8 lens, you got to shoot at 2.8 for better sharpness. You don't have to do that now. You can shoot wide open and still have really good sharpness. You'll have better sharpness on the edges. And that's all due to this new mirrorless mount called the Z mount that Nikon made. Canon, Sony, and all the other brands have made improvements with their mount as well. It's not just Nikon, but you're finding specifically with that huge Z mount, it does some really cool things that a lot of people don't know about. And of course, the last thing that you're going to notice is on a lot of the new cameras, there's also new programmable functionality. The lenses now have a third control ring in many cases where you can have your zoom, you can have your focus, but then you have a programmable dial where you can tell it to do the aperture, or you can tell it to do your shutter speed or your white balance and different functions, all right here on your lens. So it's making things faster and easier to shoot. Those are things that are also on some of the adapters. So if you have old lenses that you're retrofitting to the new camera mount, the adapter will have that ring on it in some cases, in Canon specifically, to let you do those functions with your old lenses. And so far, I think that's about it for that part of the meat and potatoes part of the conversation. So if anybody has any questions about mirrorless cameras, if anybody has a mirrorless camera, do you have one now? What are you actually photographing with? Let me know in the chat. Have you tried one before? Have you sensed any benefits using these? What camera do you use? Let me know. Let's have some conversation about it. And if we don't have any of those conversations, we're going to get to the photo challenge, but I'll just give that a second. Did you guys have any points you wanted to mention about mirrorless cameras? Anything that you found to be special? Aurora, we were talking the other day, and you found some really cool benefits to your mirrorless camera. You guys aren't going to hear this, but I'll relate what she says.
Yeah, I would just say that because the focus is right on the sensor. I will just say because the focus is right on the sensor, and because these camera systems now are developing the best technologies in their newer cameras, which ends up being the mirrorless cameras, you have that higher technology in the autofocus. So with my camera in particular, I noticed a huge difference when I went from a DSLR to a mirrorless. I was getting maybe 3 out of 10 shots in focus of my DSLR. Now out of 10 shots, I'm only getting 3 that are out of focus, not 7. So
it's a flip.
It's a bit of a flip for me that, I mean, this is an average kind of number that I'm going by, but I will still get out of focus pictures, but it's much less frequent than it was with the DSLR, and it's just because of that newer technology and the focus is right on the sensor versus on the mirror. That fraction of a second difference where the mirror has to readjust, right, I think makes a bit of a difference.
That's true. It's much more efficient and faster, so you're getting a higher percentage of keepers. I've noticed that too with my shooting.
Yeah.
Problem is I still shoot way too much. 4,000 photos, 5,600 photos one event last weekend. And that's a big problem too, is now these cameras like the Nikon Z8 or Z9, you're shooting 20 pictures per second in full RAW. So I'm coming home, instead of 2,500 pictures, now I'm coming home with twice that, just because the cameras are able to shoot that much more, and I want to shoot those little burst series. One?
No, I was going to say also, I don't know if you talked about this, but the electronic viewfinder, you can see exactly what the photo looks like without having to take that preview shot, because you can see your white balance.
Real-time live view.
Brightness, yeah.
Yeah, the real-time live view feature on the mirrorless. Basically, Juan is saying that, and I can see that Daniel says something about it, like the EVF over optical now, many more autofocus points. The electronic viewfinder shows you exactly what the changes are in your image. So if you change your aperture and it's too small and not enough light's passing through, your picture will get darker, and you'll see that right away. Whereas on the SLR cameras, there was a depth of field preview button, but I don't know who actually used it. I didn't use it.
I've used it sometimes, but it doesn't show, like a depth of field preview button only shows you what the aperture.
Right.
And
it's not a real time.
It doesn't show you with the ISO and everything else. It's not real time.
Right.
Yeah.
Ann Ashby says, Z8, love it. Now converting over with lenses, lighter. I haven't played enough yet. Actually, it's funny, Ann was just in, she picked up the 105 macro. And the macro for the mirrorless is, it feels like it's an empty thermos. It's so much lighter than the old style. So there's a big benefit there. Mike says he's so tempted by the Z line, now shoots with a D7200. Hey, my camera is the Schwartz. It's the D7100. I love those cameras. They are really, really good. What you would notice, Mike, the difference would be your focus speed, your clarity. Again, depending on which one you choose, the resolution on these cameras are really high, and the dynamic range is much better. So you're seeing in a landscape photo where you might get a picture of an owl in a field, where you crop in and look at that photo, it might look a little bit, choppy or contrasty, or a little too much, at least in my experience. With these Z cameras, it's smoother, it's cleaner. With more data to work with in editing, you can massage the photos more and use more noise removal software. So I've noticed a huge difference. Mike Garrity, 5600, wow, have fun editing. Yeah, I know. It takes a while. I give them a 2-week timeline to turn around the images. The problem was that was only one of the 2 shows that weekend. The Z Nikons are great. They're reducing the cost of DSLR lenses for my D810. They're reducing cost of DSLR lenses for my D810. Reducing the cost.
Well, I guess the price of maybe the F-mount lenses have gone down a
Oh,
That's what I'm thinking.
got it. Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, because the Z stuff is out now, all of his regular F-mount stuff is becoming cheaper. You can buy used, and
Price of those is going
yeah,
up.
absolutely. And there's a lot available. Talking about the used stuff that we have in our store, we got a huge 4-bin full shipment of used equipment on Tuesday. This is only one of the really cool things we got. So if anybody's interested in that used equipment, check out the stuff we have right now. Tom, you might want to have a look. All right. If there are no other questions, do you see anything else there, Juan, that I'm missing?
No, the comments are just popping up for me.
All right.
Looks good.
Just don't want to ignore anything. That's the whole point of doing these things, is so we can have this communication, this conversation. Tom, okay, I got you, Tom. Tom's yelling at me now. All right, so let's get into the photo challenge again. Just to remind everybody, the photo challenge that we're issuing, it's not a contest. We don't want people to think that they're better or worse than anybody else. It's just, let's get people creating new images and having fun talking about them again. So the way that's going to work is, at the beginning of each month, I'm going to issue a photo challenge theme, wide open to your interpretation. The more outside the box, possibly the better, as long as it's PG, because, you know, this is Henry's camera. We want to make sure we can display these photos in our store and, you know, let people talk about them in our reviews and so on. And the photo challenge, or the photos have to be submitted to us in a JPEG format, 72 DPI, so that it would display well on screen, and they have to be new photos created for the challenge. So any photo taken in this month of April, basically, because I issued the challenge in the first Wednesday of April. Anytime after that, any new photo you've created that apply to the theme is awesome to send in. And the theme is, if you remember, back to black. Back to black. Interpret it any way you want to. Have fun with it. I know for myself, I'm going to be doing these challenges as well, and I actually had to get out the Chat GPT and say, what are good photos for back to black? And then it gave me a whole list of things, and I'll moderate and modify them myself and come up with something a little different. But yeah, back to black. Thanks for putting that in there, Juan. All right, and that's about it. We've got about 5 minutes left. If there's more conversation, that'd be great, and more chat. Otherwise, I really hope people are getting a benefit out of watching the show. The whole point of us doing something like this is, again, to build up a community of photographers and to let people know that here in Newmarket, we want you to come in and ask questions. We want you to come in and just let us know what you're up to. And if you have any questions about a style of shooting you're trying to get into, or if there's a lens that you're looking for or a camera you're looking for that you can't find in the store, we have people here that are eager to help you out. Actually, we've been doing it a long time, and that's all we know how to do in life. We walk around at Walmart and somebody asks us camera questions and we answer them. This is what we do. And so if you want to come in and get help with your gear, please come on by the store. Bring a list with you. Let's spend some time. That's why we still have our locations. And building a community is super important, not just for our store, but also for a lot of photographers that need a little bit of motivation every once in a while. I don't know if you're like I am, the lazy photographer. When I get home, blinds closed, people don't bug me. I just want to do my own thing. But in the back of my mind, I've got this photo theme, this back to black challenge churning away, kind of reminding myself every once in a while, I still have a photo to make. I'm thinking about doing some light painting, or I'm thinking about doing something a little bit different in the backyard. But it gives me a whole month to work on that photo. From the first Wednesday of the month until the first Wednesday of the following month, you can work on your images. And then on May 1st, that's Wednesday, the first Wednesday of May, May 1st, we're going to do a review. I'm going to include the photos from our last photo walk that we just did. So if any photos are submitted from the photo walk, which is the theme for that was an Earth Day theme, planet versus plastics, which I think was an awesome time we had on Sunday doing our photo walk here. I'm going to talk about them all on the same day. So if you want to submit your photos, please send them to newmarket@henrys.com. You don't need to put it attention me, just put newmarket@henrys.com, photo challenge. Submit your photos to us, and then we'll talk about that. And if you don't want us to talk about it on the live, let me know. That's cool too. It's about what's comfortable for you. All right. Oh, Debbie's watching now. Sorry I was late. That's okay. I'm late all the time. Usually late just thinking about things, but that's okay. And Ashby, are the SLR lenses as fast using FTZ adapter on mirrorless? Guessing not. From my understanding, SLR lenses are equally as good on the mirrorless camera as they are on your SLR camera. They're not as good as the mirrorless lenses on the mirrorless camera, but they should be as good as they were on your actual SLR camera. So yeah, they should be really, really good. And if you want to try it, you could always come by the store and we can pop a lens on there if we have it in. Or unfortunately, the adapters are few and far between these days, but that is something that we're starting to get more often now. And for anything that isn't in stock, as I said, let us know. Let us do some research. Let us do some digging. Our used department is awesome. We're getting new stuff in our used department all the time. Aurora, you've been packing up used bins, what, 4 bins? 3 bins today? And that's just what we have in Newmarket. So this stuff is always going into our used department. If there's a specific lens that you want us to find, send me an email, brian.weiss@henrys.com or newmarket@henrys.com if you want to send it to the store. And one of us will dig in, call our used department, email them, tell us what we're looking for, and they'll get back to us right away. All right, that's about it. We're almost out of time. So I just want to thank everybody for watching us today. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here. And in closing, I just want to remind you, I am just a guy working in a camera store, doing the best job I can for you, our customer. If I say something a little bit wrong, call me on it. Send us an email, let me know. If you have a question about anything I've talked about, send us an email, let me know. That's the whole point. Keep that communication going and you'll have a great time, and so will we. If there's any other questions, I'll leave it for a quick second. Mike Garrity, you're very welcome. And you're very welcome. I'm not the best. You're the best. And oh yeah, if you want to check out the podcast that Aurora and I do, it's called Expressions Podcast. It's on YouTube. It's on all the audio podcasts as well. We talk to creative people about creative things, or we talk just with ourselves about some of the things that we find fun and creative. It's a lot of fun. Expressions Podcast on YouTube and all other podcast sources. All right, Doug, thank you. Looking forward to everyone. Looking forward to seeing everyone again next Wednesday. Thank you, Juan. Absolutely, yeah. Don't forget, this is going to be every Wednesday at 5 o'clock. If you have ideas for me to talk about, if you have a did you know, a quick tip that you think would be cool for other people to know, let me know. I'll roll that into the conversation. And that's it. Anything else? No, I think we're good. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you all very soon. Now, if I can find the off button.